All right, Dani Moreno, welcome back to the Single Track Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Finn. I think I've been on here a couple times now, which is awesome.
And without a doubt, there's always a lot to talk about when you are here. But in this case, I don't want to bury the lead. What is the biggest news that you can share with the audience right now?
I'm very excited to announce that I am joining Adidas Team Terex for 23 and a couple years beyond that.
Very cool, obviously. And I think there's a lot to break down there. We can talk about it from the brand angle, from who's on the team and the operators and the supporters around you. But I guess what excites you most about this move? Because you were very notably with Hoka and Rabbit for quite a while.
Yeah. It's kind of a mix of emotions. I would say I'm definitely more excited than anything right now, but anything with the big change, it just kind of like ruffles your feathers a little bit and gets you to like reassess where you are in your life. But yeah, I'm just really excited to join such a very humbled and very humble, hardworking, and top tier class of athletes on the team Terex. And just like the whole atmosphere about it, the culture, the team manager, what Robert has built, just really attracted me to the brand, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Obviously, since you've been in the sport for a number of years at this point, at least 6 or 7 competing at a professional level, right? Are there any particular things that got you interested when you were having these early conversations with Terex about what the team could offer and how you could be supported and maybe the team environment? Like, can you go into detail about the things, like the particular things that interest you the most?
Yeah, I think number one was just the constant promotion of the team, like that it wasn't, individual players, that we always were going to be, me hypothetically, if I were to join the team, like be making up the team, and just knowing that you don't have such an immense pressure on you, every race day, and that pressure lifted will actually, hopefully help you perform better, which I think for me it does. And so like, if I don't have my day, somebody else will, and that's still a win. Like that's still a win for me when the team wins. And for someone who, I've been in this sport professionally, maybe 6 years, maybe mindfully closer to 3, where I've actually been dotting my I's and crossing my T's as a professional athlete. And
yes,
I should be doing. But even before that, like I've had so many lives and phases and seasons in the sport of running. And I just kept coming back to the fact that I felt that some of my best years have been when I've been part of really good teams, whether that was a year in high school, a couple years in college. And what I find with that is that like when you're part of a really good team, you mentally are actually pretty, you don't have to mentally push as hard day in, day out, because you kind of have that push and pull mechanism. And we're not co-located, but I have access to my team members all the time. And so for someone who is just looking not only like individually to like push myself even further, but to feel like I'm contributing to other people's careers at this point in my own career, it just really attracted me.
We've had some of your new teammates on the show before, Abby Hall, Corinne Malcolm. We've spoken with Robert Burke, who I believe was the former team manager there. They've all spoken to this unique team environment. Given that you've had conversations with other brands and you've been with other brands in the past, does it seem like what they're building here is relatively unique, or at least they're taking the lead with regard to like a true team environment for professional athletes?
I think so. Maybe I have like a bias already, but I really do think so. And, when I was being introduced to the team and I told them why I chose Adidas, right? Because like they chose me, but I also had to choose them. It's that like at the races, I saw no other team like sharing in like the highs and the lows together. Like I could see them crying for each other, when you felt that heartbreak, but also like not only in the sadness, but like in the happiness, the tears that they were sharing with each other. And like they would be at the finish lines for each other. And I just saw no other brand really doing that. And another thing that like stood out to me was like Western States. Like they were like on the female side, like they were actually racing together. And like that spoke a lot to my own heart. And then I'm like, wow, they actually are like doing what it means to be a team. And I don't know if this was intentional, but you know, once the feelers are out and like they were, it was clear that there was a mutual interest, me and them and me, like whether Robert told them or not, like I felt like the individual team members started interviewing me in a way and just like, you know, one off in different places and stuff like that. And that to me actually spoke a lot. Like it's really, that just means like what they have is so special that they're going to protect it and make sure that like whoever they choose to bring into this family, like they all are in agreement that this is the right person to bring in. And so even though I was like, I wonder if I feel like, I feel like everyone's interviewing me now. Like I respected like the heck out of that because it just means, yeah, what they have is special.
I think one of the really powerful things you just said a moment ago was that when you were evaluating your career to date, a lot of your best years happened when you were in this team environment. And I know we've had you on the podcast before and you've talked about like your collegiate career and stuff, but could you go a bit more into detail about what those moments looked like and what allowed you to maybe get the most out of yourself because of it?
Yeah, I had like a couple of really good teams throughout my career. One of them was my high school years. It was my senior year actually. And I was D1 California. For anyone who's in California, that's like, you know, the biggest division, supposed to be the toughest, not always, you know, sometimes there's some D2 schools and stuff like that. But my school was like, we're from Los Angeles, not supposed to ever be at a cross country final, never made it to a state meet. And yeah, we just all believed in each other and we would just like pick each other up constantly. And ended up making it to the state meet that year, almost winning, lost by like less than 10 points. And it was just kind of like this historic year for an LA City team. And it was just like the team atmosphere. We were there during our highest highs and our lowest lows, because we definitely did have some lows. And it just like, it makes the hard work so much easier. Because even if you're having an off day, like with Adidas, like somebody else is having their good day, and you know the sum is only as strong as its what is it, the sum of its part. I can't even think of the word right now.
Yes.
You know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, and then college
in general,
a couple of times too.
right on in general. You know, you mentioned that the teamwork element of this was such an important factor when it comes into switching sponsors. Are there any other factors that went into your decision to make the switch?
Yeah, definitely. So as much as I've been talking about the team stuff, I would say like my number one factor was actually shoes. 'Cause to me, like in my innate happiness, while can be perpetuated by the team culture and the team atmosphere, is being able to contribute and like to stay healthy and just to be able to run. And so, you know, I tried a lot of different shoes, and it's kind of an interesting process because you only have a short amount of time, depending on your allotted time to try these shoes, to like kind of make a guess for, are these shoes going to work for me for the next 2, 3, 5 years, whatever contract duration you're going to look at.
Right.
But I only have a week or 2 weeks to figure this out. Yeah. So that was really, that's really tough because I've been in the same shoes for 5 years now. And obviously that's like my comfort place. So yeah, but anyway, shoes were my number one choice, and Adidas, like they are different from Hoka. But I was pleasantly surprised. And as soon as I put them on, like started to like them more and more and more. And by the end, I was like, yeah, I can definitely trust in these shoes and that they're going to keep me healthy. And it's not so dramatic of a change, because that's also something I had to consider, through the different shoe trials is like, okay, these shoes might feel good this one week, but like I had to really think about my form and my foot strike and like how the shoes were potentially going to wear down. And like I did lean into like a lot of reviews for shoes too, for people who maybe had more than a couple weeks to try them for different brands. So yeah, that part was really hard, but like I kept a spreadsheet and I would log the days that I would try the different shoes and see what I liked and didn't like, and see if, what I didn't like showed up again the next time. And I tried to keep it as simple as possible, because the way I saw it is like with a brand, I only really needed one pair of shoes to work. You don't need 10 different pairs of shoes to work, especially at least for me in the distances that I like right now. But even so, like Adidas just really delivered in that area. So then once that box was checked, then it was the next for me was team culture, and then seeing which brands aligned with what I thought would be a good team culture fit for me.
If you think back over the last 3 or so years with Hoka, for example, what have been some of the biggest lessons or insights you've picked up navigating the professional trail runner path in our sport?
Can you explain that again? Sorry.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking about it in terms of like, for anybody out there that is listening to this interview and maybe they're at the beginning of their journey as an aspiring professional athlete working with brands, or even if they're in the middle of that process and they're wondering like how to navigate it, or, how to like defend their worth, stuff like that. Have there just been any like lessons you've picked up that have, for example, made you confident to make the jump to a new brand, or to just like realize your value in the brand marketplace, stuff like that?
Yeah, I think prioritizing like what it is that you not only want to get out of the sport, but what's making you happy about the sport. So again, for me, I know innately, like I first and foremost just need to be able to run, and to be able to run not just next year, but many years in my life, like the rest of my life, I want to be able to run. And so staying healthy and picking the right shoes was just number one priority to me. Like, didn't matter if it was the biggest contract that I was being offered, if the shoes didn't work, like that was my line. So I think just knowing like what your line is and that you're not going to cross it, and like being true and holding yourself to it is really important. And then going beyond that, to me, like the next, besides the individual Dani being selfish and wanting to be happy and healthy, it's the human experience and like experiencing this joy with other people, and what's going to then take me to that next level of happiness. That was that team culture, and being able to experience it with other like-minded people who are going to like, I can learn from, and then maybe they'll learn from me and we can all better each other. And then it sucks. This is kind of a tricky one, but again, for people, these are my priorities. But somebody else's priorities might be the biggest contract is their number one priority, and that's totally fine. I'm really lucky in that, I work full time. And so that might have been a little bit lower on my priority list. But with that being said, like I reframed it in a way that when, assuming there's numbers with every contract, that like, maybe I'm not doing that for me, but I'm doing that for the next young Dani who's 5 years younger than me, and like making sure that she has a fair contract in her future. So while like I was able to disassociate it and like make it so it still was a priority, because that to me is important, that younger Dani had gotten a better first contract, Yeah.
You mentioned earlier in our conversation having some really great conversations with some of the Terex athletes during the recruitment process, including that, maybe even beyond it, just within the rest of your network and maybe even with other brands. Were there any really interesting conversations you had, or great advice you received, or just good influence in the process that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I think just like speaking generally, overall, I think the sport is in a much better place for sub-ultra athletes than it was even a couple years ago. So I think that's really exciting. Another thing is that, like, while Adidas kind of, in my opinion, is already doing the thing with team culture, there's a lot of brands who are wanting to do that or on their way to doing that. So I think that's really cool that, you know, brands are taking note that that is an important aspect for athletes, especially athletes like myself who, you know, were part of teams and were maybe in NC2As and like liked that team aspect, etc. So I think I definitely took like a lot of good out of it. And just even again from like a couple years ago, the support is so much more holistic now, which I think is really helping to, you know, younger Danis are having a lot more better opportunities than I had first in the sport. So yeah, I would say it's a lot of really good things. It got me really excited. I wouldn't necessarily say it like made my decision harder because my heart was pretty set on Terex. But yeah, I think there's a lot of a lot of brands doing a lot of cool stuff right now.
I thought one of the things that you said just there that was really interesting is how you've noticed the athlete brand relationship become a bit more holistic over the years. Can you talk more about what that means?
Yeah, I think it's just that athletes realize that, you know, if you want to get, or brands are realizing that if you want to get the most out of an athlete, you can't just give them shoes. Like there's other support that goes into it that will, it's really, I think, a win-win, you know, because if you're trusting an athlete enough as a brand to represent your brand and that you're trusting that they are going to develop and like potentially, you know, market your shoes so that people want to buy them, like it only is on like yourself to like provide that person with as much support as possible. So yeah, that's just what I mean by that, which is exciting.
I think one of the many things that I've learned in this conversation is how short of a window you have to test product as you're navigating this contract season. That seems fairly stressful to me, and there's just a lot riding on maybe just a few uses of the product. And I guess the more general question I have here is, do you enjoy this sort of recruiting process and contract season and switching teams? Like, do you enjoy sort of the economics of all this, or are you somebody that just wants to, you know, expedite that process and get back to training and focusing on that as much as possible?
That's a really good question. Because again, just talking generally, it like depends on your allotment of time. So that'll vary. But I am like a loyal person. And so like, I mean, I was with two brands for 6 years. And so making this change was definitely like, I knew it had to be done and I knew it was time. But it still was like, yeah, it felt rushed for such a big decision. But again, that's me and like the reality that is Dani's mind. That to me, it feels like such a big decision because I tend to attach emotion to everything. With that being said, like this time I did have legal representation and that really made the process even longer. But I am so glad I did because it just opened my eyes to so many things. And at the end of it, I felt like I left no stone unturned. And I just felt really good about the whole thing. So yeah.
That's interesting. So you went with an agent this time around. And I'm guessing you've had experiences without an agent. Is that something you recommend to fellow athletes, like moving forward?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I wish I had it before. It just, I mean, I am in the corporate world. I felt like I had a lot of experience, but it's not even close to what I experienced this time. And that was just, yeah, it was extremely helpful. Yeah.
Maybe speaking abstractly for a bit, because I'm trying to also, I mean, and you've done an excellent job of this, but I'm trying to think of like things that we can cover that help somebody that's tuning into this in a year who's in like your similar position benefit in some capacity. Can you talk about like end to end how this process kicks off and how it ends? Like, is there like a portion of your contract with a previous sponsor where there's like a time, like a window where you can start talking with Terex and other teams, stuff like that?
Yeah, I'll talk about it generally, but
yeah, please. Oh, yeah. Of course.
So, typically an athlete will have, yes, one can assume that there's like an allotted amount of time, and that varies per person. And that is your window to potentially reach out to other brands, or brands will reach out to you. And then you take that time and you assess your potential opportunities. And so, as part of that assessment, you would assume as a runner what comes with that shoes. So you would try those different shoes, but you also need to be attentive, right? Because you are still representing a brand, and like maybe you still have races on the calendar. And so you need to make sure that like you're training in your current gear and preparing for those races and stuff. Yeah.
You talked about how, the shoes, the gear, it counts for a lot. It can be make or break when it comes to performance in some scenarios. And I guess this is just, spanning out even more. When you think about accomplishing your future goals in the sport with Terex, how important just generally is it to be supported, affiliated with a brand where it is holistic? Like, does that truly in your mind make a difference when you get on start lines? Is it the difference between like finishing like first and fourth, for example? Like, do you feel like a performance benefit when there's a holistic support there?
Yes, definitely. I guess like a good way to put it is that, I don't think I could have not won something like OCC with my former brands. Like, I definitely think that was possible with the shoes and stuff, but the like day-to-day effort that it would have taken to get there, I think it would have just required a little bit more mental fortitude. And, while I like to believe that's infinite for me, there's other parts of my life that I balance with running. And so just having that little bit of support, I think just allows me to, potentially win OCC, but, win 3 other big races in the same year. And just having kind of just like that sigh of relief every week or so that I'm not the one financially supporting my running aspirations too. So that kind of day to day, week to week, month to month, I think it just adds up. And I would say I'm still young, but I am aware that, maybe I might not stay in this sport for another decade. And so I kind of just want to be able to take that sigh of relief now and see if I can start having some bigger performances sooner.
I want to talk about, your racing schedule, your plans for 2023 and beyond in just a second. One last question to close the book on this topic. You've now been in the contract process multiple times in your career. I think you've hinted at the fact that it's a better environment than it was maybe the last time around. But between, let's just say 2019, 2020, and now in 2023, how much better or hospitable, I'll say, has it become for athletes in your estimation in this overall negotiating process? Like, do athletes have a better experience now than they did 3 or 4 years ago? Is it getting better that quickly?
I don't know if I'd call it like a better experience. It's still pretty like stressful to be, putting your passion into numbers or trying to, equate it to like, quote unquote, what is my worth, and everyone trying to figure that out and push the envelope on it.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's still kind of a weird thing to try and equate my love for the sport. And so I still kind of consider it stressful. With that being said, like, I think what's less stressful is that people can ask for that and it's not as scary. And like, there are more opportunities, and like the opportunities that are out there are better. And so that, I think, is what's really exciting and stuff. But yeah, I think it just depends on the person. Like, if I went to law school, maybe I would think it's like the most exciting thing. It's just a weird aspect of the sport. To me, I rather just like everyone be soul runners and we're just out there having fun. But I understand it's like part of the professionalization of it.
I'm glad you mentioned the lawyer piece. I grew up in a family of lawyers and judges, and it's now dawning on me why I nerd out on all this side of the sport. So thank you for putting that in context for me. Okay, let's talk about the racing schedule. What does that look like this year?
So I announced last week that I'm doing the Boston Marathon. So that is out of left field. So I'm in the pro field, which is really exciting. And that's actually my marathon debut.
Okay.
So that's a big ticker off the bucket list. I actually have been really sick. So hopefully once I get 110% better, I'll be super stoked about getting to that training. And then OCC. So that's another one I'll be doing this year. And then it looks like Mont Blanc Marathon. But outside of that, and the Mammoth Trail Fest too. Sorry. So in order, Boston, Mont Blanc, OCC, Mammoth Trail Fest. And yeah, the rest kind of has to be finessed a little bit more.
How did you get into Boston?
Emailed the elite coordinator.
Right on.
Yeah. Because if you're in the elite field, then yeah, if they let you in, then you're in the pro field.
You said marathon debut. Have you done a road half or a road 10K before?
I did a road half years ago. But my most recent road stuff was I did like a 5-miler 2 Thanksgivings ago. And then I did a 5K during my build up to OCC. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
What are the goals for Boston? What time is possible there in your mind?
Well, I'm definitely going for the OTQ. So 2:37.
Okay.
And beyond that, I'm kind of just letting my training dictate. Like I have some like scary goals in the back of my head. But I'm kind of just letting them nestle there until the training like starts to unfold itself a little bit more. And I can see like what kind of tools I have in my shed.
And how are you making it work? I know you said you've been sick, but once you get better, how are you going to make this work in the mammoth winter? It's like record snowfall there right now, right? A lot of treadmill stuff?
A lot of treadmill stuff. And I actually love running in the snow. I feel like I actually love it even more because like no one really runs on the snow here, but the like cross country skiing, snowmobile, multi-use paths, like you can actually run on them. And sometimes it's like a little post holy, but those are the days I actually like love even more. But I did that all last winter and the winter before that. And I just find I come out so strong after a couple months of running on the snow. Yeah.
The rest of the schedule, OCC, Mont Blanc Marathon, Mammoth Trail Fest, all exciting. I think I want to zero in on OCC. You've already had massive success there. You've been on the podium. Since you're returning, I'm guessing you want to improve on last year's result. Does your racing style change? Does your approach change? Are you more aggressive? Talk about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Thank you, by the way. Yeah, definitely improving. The goal would definitely be to win. Probably would be more aggressive now that I'm a little more used to the distance. I think I just wanted to go in just really quietly hungry into that race. And, you know, I'll always have a race plan, but with that one this last year, it being my first one, never running that far in my life, I just wanted to play it close to my chest at first. But now that I've felt it and like, you know, I took my notes after the race of all the areas to improve. I really do think I could do much better there. which is exciting, especially because the second half, I just felt like I came back really strong. And it's not that I left anything on the table at that race, but I definitely felt like I could have allocated my race surges in different ways that potentially could have helped me close that 1 minute gap on second. So thoughts like that will definitely be plaguing my mind through the summer as I prepare for that.
Last question I have for you. I feel like when you're in between contracts or you're starting something new, it's always a time for reflection. And I guess this is a two-part question, but the first part is how stoked are you about trail running right now? And then the second part is how much longer do you see yourself keeping this up? Because clearly you're in the prime of your career. Your stock is even, rising, I would say. But like where are you at with everything?
I'm super excited. Again, I think what just is making me even more excited is I just feel like we're at a nexus in the sport of growth and exponential growth, but trying to be careful. I really love how much everyone cares that we do this right, because I think there have been sports that have grown really too fast and then have gotten their kind of dark sides exasperated and caught maybe going down the wrong path. So yeah, I just like how much people care right now and how hungry everyone is for filling those gaps that we have. And yeah, I think for me, like if there's a niche area that I'm excited about is the sub ultra space, just because, I got asked a lot of times, many years, why I still do sub ultras. And it was just because I loved them, and people were like, but you don't get like any attention. No one like people just wouldn't really know about me, etc. So I'm like proud that I stuck to my guns, and that also like younger sub ultra athletes are getting the opportunities that they are, because I just think it's just such a cool aspect of the sport. And I'm glad that I stuck with it, because now I'm here during the time still that it's starting to gain traction and attention and stuff. And I still happen to be mixing it up with some really good athletes. So yeah, I'm just excited about a lot of stuff.
Well, Dani, I'm super excited for you. I think that this is quite a catch for Adidas Terrex. I think you're one of the best athletes in the sport, and I think you're multifaceted. So great investment on their behalf. Thank you so much for being so generous with your knowledge and experience about this process. I think there's going to be folks that listen to this that will take notes and apply stuff to their own, journeys in the sport. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you think would be worthwhile before we go?
Yeah, I think just, looking back at my time with Hoka and Rabbit, again, just like really thankful for that. And I hope people know that, I think it's exciting to see all these athletes changing contracts and changing brands. And, for the young athlete that might be in a contract that maybe they're not stoked about, or they're just like, I don't know, sedentary, I guess. Like there's many lives to your career if you want to have them. Just keep working hard and like making those opportunities happen for yourself.